day is nearly here, and things are starting to take shape. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball Today on Monday, March 23rd. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Today on the show, lots of news to catch you up on from the weekend. Opening day rosters are being set, so we're learning who's in and who's out. We had some surprising names sent down, lots to talk about with prospects, injury updates. I have some interesting performances from the weekend as well. If we have time, we'll wrap up with a quick look at our For the People Listener League, and we'll end the show by playing one of the songs that was sent in by the listener, one of the listeners, and it was a pretty cool FPT intro. So we'll play it as an outro today, but maybe on a future episode we'll play it as an intro. Scott,
Frank,
how you doing, man? Let's kick this off. I hope you don't have a lot of Konnor Griffin because we're gonna start there. Where else will we start?
He was among, I wrote about the players I'm most invested in, the players I've drafted the most.
Yep.
The 24 players I've drafted the most. He was among them, Konnor Griffin. 3 shares.
Well, let's talk about it.
It wasn't unexpected.
Yeah, but we always knew this was a possibility. Konnor Griffin will open the season at AAA. Reminder, he still is just 19 years old. And he really, I think, needed to kind of light the world on fire this spring, and he didn't do that. He hit 171, 4 homers, 1 steal, 749 OPS. Definitely had some big home runs and some big exit velocities, and so he flashed at times. It just wasn't consistent enough. 2 walks to 13 strikeouts here for Konnor Griffin, a 28% strikeout rate this spring. Manager Don Kelly had this to say: absolutely nothing he did wrong. You see a young kid who was maybe pressing just a little bit and trying really hard. Konnor Griffin, the person, is elite, allowing him to go and get back to basics and being Konnor Griffin out there. We know there's an elite talent level that comes with him. Just looking forward to him being in Pittsburgh whenever that time comes. I also read that the Pirates were a little concerned about how Griffin struggled specifically against fastballs this spring. So I don't know. They're trying to find things that he needs to work on, obviously. Scott, how far did you lower him or plan to lower him? I assume he's just the top prospect to stash right now.
Yeah, he's absolutely the top prospect to stash. I think if you drafted him anywhere yet, you stash him, because it could be just a short while before we see him. It could be before the end of April even. There is an important cutoff sometime in that month. Though I don't necessarily think this is the Pirates playing service time manipulation games. I think Konnor Griffin didn't show with absolute certainty that he was ready. So I think he looked good enough that he should probably dominate AAA. Of course, he's dominated every stop up through AA last year. So I'm hopeful we'll see him at least within the first quarter of the season, and that would make him worth stashing in most contexts. I moved him. Let's see. I think I had him about 16th at shortstop, and now he's 20th. So I've moved him behind JJ Weatherholt. Mm-hmm. He is closer to where I have Kevin McGonigal now, and that drops him outside the top 200 overall in Roto Leagues, when I think I had him closer to 150 before. So obviously still in the draftable range. Yeah. Even in 10-teamers, I would say. But you have to weigh how big your bench is, how much you rely on bench players to sub into your lineup, as opposed to them just being there as like a way to preserve players of value. And that's going to be league dependent. But I would say most leagues, someone should be stashing Konnor Griffin.
Yeah. So I haven't done this yet, but I plan to drop him down to shortstop 24, which will put him just behind Xander Bogaerts, Otto Lopez, Kevin McGonigal. We still don't know if Kevin McGonigal is going to be up yet. I think kind of feel like he should be, but we haven't got that confirmation yet. JJ Weatherholt, I think we feel a little bit more confident that he will be up on the opening day roster with the Cardinals. So still waiting to hear about those other prospects. But for now, Konnor Griffin sent down. Don't know exactly when we'll see him. It could be very soon, Scott. If he gets off to a slow start, this is something that could drag out a little bit. So it's just keep your timeline realistic, I guess, or your expectations in check here for Konnor Griffin. For those,
I would be surprised if he got off to a slow start, just because like, again, he went from low A to double A last year and was exactly the same amazing producer throughout. So I think he'll handle AAA easily, but it is always possible he doesn't.
For those still drafting, his NFBC ADP this weekend was 189, and that was over the course of 109 drafts. So there were tons of NFBC drafts this weekend. So that's a
biggest draft weekend.
Pretty big data sample there. 189 for Griffin, but his max is 297. His min was 103. So depending on when they were drafting, Friday, people might have still thought that he was going to be up on opening day. And then obviously we got that news on Saturday. So that kind of affected the ADP from those drafts on. Speaking of shortstop prospects, Colt Emerson will begin the season in the minors as well. This one, I thought there was a chance, Scott, just because the injury that JP Crawford is dealing with, a shoulder right now. I guess they could go with Leo Rivas in the meantime. And Colt Emerson has only played like 5 or 6 games at AAA and still only 20 years old. So I totally get them sending him down. I don't think we had as much confidence that he would be up. Where I'm sure you're like working on your prospects to stash. Do you think Colt Emerson will be among like the top 5 prospects to stash heading into the season?
Just going off the top of my head, probably outside the top 5, but I would guess in the top 10. That's something I'll be looking at a little later in the week.
Okay. We got a bunch of injury updates as well. Jeremy Peña hit again on Sunday, and the Astros are still discussing whether he will travel with the team back to Houston in advance of opening day. Still working his way back from that fracture on the tip of his right ring finger. The NFBC ADP this weekend for Jeremy Peña was 129, the 13th shortstop off the board, behind Trevor Story, just ahead of Willy Adames. Does that make sense, Scott, based on what we know right now about Peña? About 130, right between Story and Adames.
That's exactly, I don't know that I have him exactly 129, but I have him between those 2 shortstops. So yeah, that sounds right to me for Jeremy Peña.
Seiya Suzuki, we learned, will not be ready for opening day because of that PCL sprain in his knee. The expectation is that Michael Conforto will make the opening day roster there with the Cubs. Suzuki's ADP this weekend was 125 as the 29th outfielder off the board, just after Joe Adell and Teoscar Hernandez. How does that sound for Seiya Suzuki?
I don't think I moved him down quite that far, but let me double check. Suzuki, I have him 23rd. You said 29. Yeah. Yeah, I still have him ahead of Joe Adell and Teoscar Hernandez. But honestly, I still have him in a higher tier than those 2. I moved Suzuki to the back of the tier. He was more in the middle of the tier before. I don't expect him to miss much time. They haven't even confirmed that he'll begin on the IL. Yeah, they made a point to say that they haven't determined that yet. He's out for opening day, but they don't know that he's going to be out so long that they want to put him on the IL.
Next up, Jackson Holliday took live BP this weekend with no issues. He continues to work his way back from hamate bone surgery. His ADP this weekend over at the NFBC was 198. And reminder, there are no IL spots over at the NFBC. So right around pick 200 there for Jackson Holliday, who could miss the first couple weeks of the season. Scott, we got some bad news for my guy, our guy, Nick Lodolo. Here we go. Left his start Sunday due to a blister on his left index finger, and he has dealt with blisters each of the previous 2 seasons before this one. So 2024, 2025. He's dealt with some injury-related things in the past. None of them have been drastic in terms of elbow, shoulder, things like that. It's been blisters. It's been some lower body stuff that Lodolo has dealt with. But once again, dealing with a blister here. GM Brad Meador, probably should know that. Is that their GM? I don't know. Isn't it like Nick Kroll? Maybe he's the president of whatever. They said that they'll see how Nick Lodolo is doing on Monday. They said you hope he felt it soon enough to get out of there before it got bad. We'll see how it recovers and go from there. So for anyone still drafting, Scott, what do we do with Nick Lodolo?
Yeah, that whole tier of starting pitchers for me is Honestly, I don't know how to approach it. So it's a small tier. It's right in the middle. It's the next best things. It begins with Nolan McLean and Cam Schlittler. Nothing wrong with those two, obviously. Then Nick Pavetta, who seems to be healthy at the moment, but he had an issue earlier this spring that I think has caused people to back off him. Nick Lodolo, who we're talking about now. Chase Burns, who we're not sure is going to be used like a conventional starter since they kept 6 on the roster and are saying it's going to be 6 for 5 spots. Brandon Woodruff, who still not clear he's going to be ready for the start of the season as he comes back from the lat issue. He has been pitching in spring games, but just himself sounds like he's not sure he's going to be ready. Tyler Glass now, perpetual injury risk, though he looked great on Sunday for what it's worth. Struck at 11, I think. Trevor Rogers and Gavin Williams, who they're seemingly fine. So a small tier of starting pitchers there, given how big the position is. And most of them have real concerns heading into the season. And because it's so small, I'm reluctant to drop all of those guys out of it. Lodolo, Burns, Woodruff, Chase Burns, because I do think they are better in theory than everyone in the tier that follows. And plus, you're leaving such a tiny tier there. I haven't come up with an answer I'm satisfied with, so I've kind of just left it alone. But we just did a draft here for the People League. It's a 16 teamer, so on the deeper end for sure. It really changed the complexion of starting pitcher for me. Not only that, but I think maybe the biggest revelation from the weekend is that it really clarified which late round starting pitchers of the many late round starting pitcher options I find interesting. It really clarified which are worth drafting and which not. And I'm sure we'll get into some of that later. So between those two developments, the very middle of the position taking a big hit, kind of the higher end of the middle, to kind of the area I'd like to live in, to be honest. Yeah. Taking a big hit. And then the late round options kind of getting dwindled down. I'm suddenly feeling a little more urgency at the position for those who still have yet to draft. And I know there are a number of people who do still have yet to draft. They don't necessarily handle it on the weekend. So something to keep in mind. Yeah. So in that draft that we did here on Sunday night, again, it's very unique setup for this league. The For the People Listener League draft that we do, 16 team head-to-head categories, quality starts instead of wins. Nick Lodolo went at pick 120, and that was after Nathan Eovaldi, Spencer Strider, Zach Wheeler, Sonny Gray. So I haven't counted up all the pitchers, but I imagine that's probably somewhere like the SP 35-ish range, something like that for Lodolo. And I have him around SP 26. So he did fall a little bit, at least compared to my rankings in that draft that we did on Sunday night. And I don't even know his situation. Well, really, I guess a lot of them. We don't know Burns' situation exactly, other than that he's on the roster. We still don't know if Woodruff's going to be available for the start of the season. I'm presuming not, because if they haven't said he will be yet, it makes me think he won't be, but we don't know. And then Lodolo with the blister, part of what makes this so scary is it's the same finger, a blister on the exact same finger, left index finger, that's affected him in the past. And in the past, it's not just that he misses time with the blister, but it affects the grip on his most important pitch, the curveball. So he has gone to great lengths to avoid these blister issues, but and maybe he has such familiarity with this point that he caught it early. I noticed one Reds beat writer mentioned that the blister didn't break, which I presume is a good sign. So it was more of like a hot spot, which maybe will help him recover sooner. Mm-hmm. But it's up in the air, clearly. I mean, they're going to check on it a couple of days. It's possible he goes on the IL. Probably be a short stay if he does. So that's another reason why I don't want to bury Lodolo in my rankings. But it's concerning. It's particularly concerning given his history with this issue and how it has shown that it can affect his performance. Yeah. So
I think I'll probably drop him a little bit again. I don't want to overreact to this. I think I'll probably put him around like SP 34. And I mean, there's just a lot of pitchers I like in that range too. So just ahead of him would be Bubba Chandler, Shota Imanaga, Ryan Pepio, Emmet Sheehan. I mean, these are Cam Schlittler. These are all guys that, I talk about quite a bit. So I still like Lodolo. Could be a short thing on the IL. I almost would prefer that, right? Like, let's just get this out of the way. Let's nip it in the bud. Let's get Lodolo healthy and have him for the long haul this season rather than trying to continue to battle through this thing. We got more bad news. Kyle Stowers re-injured his right hamstring and will miss 3 to 4 weeks. Roster Resource has Liam Hicks as the DH. They have Griffin Conine in left field. I also saw a report that Connor Norby could get some time in the outfield here to kind of mix and match and move guys around, I guess, to try and put their best lineup on the field here. Stowers' NFBC ADP this weekend was 176 with a max of 283. Scott, how far did you or plan to lower Kyle Stowers in the rankings?
So that one I haven't gotten around to yet because it was a little later in the day and I moved on to working on other things. So let's deal with that now. Feel like I got to drop him outside the top 40 because it sounds like he's going to miss most of April.
Yep.
And potentially it could extend into May. I mean, recovery from hamstring strains isn't always the most straightforward. So 39, I have Caglione. Got to move him behind him.
Yep.
Dalen Lyle, I'd move Stowers behind him. Ramon Laureano, that's another sleeper pick of mine. Brian Reynolds, another sleeper pick of mine. I think I need to move him behind all of them. Then you get into Noel V. Marte, who it's looking like he's going to make the team, right? He just hit his 5th homer Sunday. I know it was mostly defensive issues, but yeah, I don't know. JJ Bleday has been playing so well that maybe they could still justify sending Marte down. I don't know. We haven't really heard anything there, but it's up in the air. I think I'd want to move Stowers behind him. So that puts him about 44th, which is ahead of Cedon Rafaela, who I don't want anything to do with. Brenton Doyle, who I'm also not a big fan of. Then you get into Stephen Kwan, Sal Frelick. They have their uses, but they're obviously capped in terms of what their ceiling is.
Yeah.
So that sounds about right to me. 44 for Kyle Stowers.
Yeah, I was thinking the same exact range. That would put him just behind Brian Reynolds, Dalton Varsho for me, Caglione, Alec Burleson, names like that. So I think that makes sense there. Drop Stowers down into the mid 40s in the outfield. And I know some people have already been, hitting us up on Twitter, Scott, asking for replacements. I don't know if you have sleeper hitters that are going to come out for like the first half week or the long week. Is that something we're planning to do, Scott?
Yes, it is. I'm going to work on that tomorrow. Okay. It's going to come out Tuesday. So I haven't gotten into that yet, but just based on news from the weekend, looks like Carson Benj is making the Mets. Spoiler alert, that's probably further down your notes. Looks like he's going to be their starting right fielder. He had a good spring. I think he's the top outfield prospect of baseball. Skill set could be kind of similar to Stowers. I think Benj is a little more batting average driven while Stowers more power driven, but neither was all of one or the other. And Benj is pretty widely available. Mike Talkman tore his meniscus. That's why it seems like a foregone conclusion Benj will make the roster. I'm not sure it's been announced yet. Yeah, but it just makes sense that that's what happened.
Yeah, I think if you play in a shallower 3 outfielder league too, Dalen Lyle is someone that we talk about a lot. He's 65% rostered on CBS. So if you play in a 3 outfielder league, I think he's someone that could be out there. A little bit further down the list, now I like Benj, like you mentioned. Jung-Hoo Lee could be a good points league player if you need him in the meantime. Owen Casey, Kyle Stowers' teammate. Yeah. I mean, we're expecting not what Stowers did last year, but probably a similar skill set. Lots of power, maybe a lower batting average. So
probably the skill set is even more comparable there than for Benj with Owen Casey. But, obviously rookie, and that comes with downside risk. Still, it's not going to be perfect. A guy off the waiver wire.
Last injury update here I wanted to get to. Trey Savage is scheduled to start a minor league game on Wednesday. We know that he's starting on the IL due to a shoulder impingement. His ADP this weekend over at the NFBC, again, no IL spots there, 239 for Trey Savage. That is just behind Mike Burrows, Jack Leiter, Garrett Cole. Does that sound right, Scott?
That
or
seems
maybe
too far. That seems like too far of a drop. I moved you Savage. I moved him behind Matthew Boyd, which is still ahead of like Edward Cabrera, Mackenzie Gore.
Yeah.
You said about 230th is where he's going over the weekend.
239, yeah.
I have him 192 in my own rankings.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a good sign that he's already starting a minor league game. And that is what was reported, not that he wasn't feeling better from the shoulder impingement, just that he had it at the start. It set him back. He needs more time to get ready.
Yeah.
And him already starting minor league games, I think, validates that.
All right, before we take our first break, opening night and opening day are nearly here. I cannot believe it, Scott. We are just about here. Want to remind everyone, stick with us all season long. We'll typically go live Sunday through Thursday nights in season 12 o'clock, 12:30. I don't know. Times may vary, but we've got to wait for West Coast games to wind down.
Later than we should.
Yes.
Later than our wives are happy with.
After midnight Eastern time. So I realize that it is not feasible for many people to watch live. But if you live on the West Coast and want to watch us live, we will be Sunday through Thursday nights in season live here on the YouTube channel. Make sure to like this video, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, or follow wherever you get your podcasts. Let's take that break. We'll be back right after this.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Ready or not, here I come. Let's go!
Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Again, it's just really a news-packed episode, Scott. There's so much to talk about. I want to get back to some of the hype guys. You mentioned Carson Benj. We found out that he is expected to be the Mets opening day starter in right field. 53% rostered for those who play on CBS. Do you think he's someone that needs to be rostered everywhere, Scott? Is it only 5 outfielder leagues for Carson Benj, or can you see it in a 3 outfielder head-to-head league as well?
I could see it in a 3 outfielder league. It depends how far you have to go into the outfield pool. Like if you find yourself suddenly needing an outfielder, I think his skill set is well suited for a points league. It's just not as many outfielders are normally needed there. So he may get pushed out just because of the surplus, but certainly in 5 outfielder leagues, Carson Benj needs to be added.
All right, we learned that Zebby Matthews was sent down to AAA, which means Mick Abel should be in the rotation, and his last start came on Thursday of last week. He went 4 2/3 innings, 2 earned runs in that one, 6 strikeouts, had 11 whiffs on 79 pitches. Obviously, Abel has had a great spring. He was a big-name pitching prospect, came over to the Twins last year in the Yohan Duran trade. His ADP this weekend's got 287 for Mick Abel, just behind Casey Mize, Will Warren, Max Meyer, Merrill Kelly, Noah Cameron. Feels a little too low to me.
Yeah, I'd have him ahead of a lot of those guys. Maybe I probably would keep Merrill Kelly ahead because his injury seems like a nothing burger.
Yep.
But other than that, Mick Abel, I'd take him over Casey Mize, Will Warren, not Merrill Kelly, Max Meyer, and Noah Cameron.
How about against some other, hyped up pitchers this spring? Would you take Mick Abel over Andrew Painter?
Yes, I would.
How about Shane Smith? Somebody I know you like.
Let's see what my rankings say there. I do like Shane Smith, but I don't think I've had opportunity to draft him. He has not had a good spring for whatever it's worth, but he was named the White Sox opening day starter pretty early on. I'm not sure he needed to have a good spring. So I don't know that we need to make too much of that, but he isn't the most proven pitcher. So it's at least worth commenting on. I have Shane Smith ahead of Mick Abel, but I guess there are a few starting pitchers in between them.
Yeah.
They're only 9 spots apart in my overall rankings, Shane Smith and Mick Abel, but mostly it's pitchers between them.
Would you rather have Mick Abel or Cody Ponce?
Cody Ponce.
What about Mick Abel or Mike Burrows?
Mike Burrows.
And I don't know if you share the same enthusiasm for this pitcher, but he's been pretty hyped up this spring. Mick Abel or Braxton Ashcraft?
I have Abel ahead of Ashcraft because I don't think Ashcraft's strikeout upside quite compares to those others. But he's a pretty good strikeout pitcher who gets a ton of ground balls. So I have enthusiasm for him too. This is like sleeper central at starting pitcher. Everybody you're naming here. So I don't, just because I prefer some to others, I don't want anyone to think I'm not excited about the ones I'm picking against.
The answer is all of them, Scott.
It's a range of 12 players in my top 300, and they're just all right there.
Yep. Speaking of the hyped up pitchers, your guy, Didier Fuentes of the Braves. He will be on their opening day roster, expected to be used as a long reliever for the first few weeks of the season. The plan from there is for him to get sent down to the minors and then stretched out as a starter. So not exactly sure when he'll just be a starter for the Braves this season, but I have a good feeling he will make a good amount of starts for them. He had a ridiculous spring, man. 9 no-hit innings, 17 strikeouts to 0 walks.
Yeah.
His only blemish, his only base runner, a hit by pitch. So he has looked amazing. 16% rostered. Scott, how are you treating Didier Fuentes right now for fantasy?
Yeah, it was basically like he threw a perfect game with 17 strikeouts this spring. Technically not because of the hit by pitch, but it's definitely an eye-popping stat line. And I mean, anybody who watched him pitch, I think was pretty impressed. Obviously, the Braves were. I don't think there was any intention of having him on the opening day roster. He just forced the issue. And I think the only reason he isn't in the starting rotation right now is because they need to keep depth. And so Bryce Elder kind of has to be in the rotation because he's out of options. But Bryce Elder is currently in the rotation. Yep. And so is Reynaldo Lopez, whose fastball was down about 3 miles per hour all spring, and it was down closer to 6 miles per hour in his final start Sunday. So I think between those two, Elder and Lopez, like the Braves are going to have a need in their rotation very soon.
And Grant Holmes' arm is kind of hanging on by a thread, right?
Yeah. I mean, he has a UCL issue. They don't seem to think it's a big deal, but we know about it. And so that could possibly become an issue. Look, anybody could get her. Chris Sale, Spencer Strider, like any of them could. It's just the Braves rotation, because of those last two especially, seems to have more vulnerabilities than most. Yeah. So I understand what the plan is. Maybe the plan will come to fruition. I think the plan could get disrupted just by Lopez and Elder blowing up.
Yeah.
And so maybe Fuentes doesn't end up having that stint at AAA. First run of waivers was in a lot of my leagues tonight. And I think the drafts like some of the drafts like TGFBI, they happen later than usual. So I noticed going through for this first run of waivers, there weren't as many interesting options as I feel like there normally are on the first run of waivers. And Didier Fuentes struck me as the most interesting option in most of them, certainly in the 15-teamers, where pitching gets stretched really thin. Because I think there's a path for him being a serious breakout this year. I mean, he's very young. He didn't throw that many innings last year, so there are going to be some workload issues. But I expect he'll be in the Braves rotation sooner than later, probably before the end of April. And I think there's big strikeout upside here for sure.
So you said you wound up winning him, right? In TGFBI?
Yes, for $16 of $1,000.
So we were talking beforehand, and I told you I'm not going to look at my bids yet. I don't want to be distracted by what happened. And I didn't even get to update them. I just put in like some placeholder bids. But I got Didier Fuentes, $1, Scott. Let's
$1. Let's go. It turns out I could have won him for $1 too. I don't know. Everybody was sleeping this first run because Only 4 players were bid on in my TGFBI league, and all of them got just one bid.
How about this? I dropped Hunter Green to pick up Didier Fuentes.
What happened in the league with IL spots? But
yes, yeah, 7 bench spots, 15 team league. There's no IL, so I'm not holding Hunter Green until July or whenever he's back. So maybe I'll look to pick him up like when we're getting closer there. But I knew that I was always going to drop him this first waiver run.
Somebody asked me what other SP was I targeting off the waiver wire. Matthew Liberatore was one. He was not really on anybody's radar when those drafts happened.
Mm-hmm.
Will Warren was out there in some leagues. I have moderate interest in him. He had another good start Sunday, and he finishes the spring in 6 starts with a 1.42 ERA and 0.63 WHIP.
Yep.
The strikeouts, the missed bats, a little underwhelming. I'm not sure it's legit, but if you need a pitcher, I think Will Warren is somebody you could throw $1 at and see what happens.
Yep, I have both of those guys on the rundown a little bit later on. Liberatore and Will Warren, again, good starts this weekend. Had really great springs for both of them. Last question on Fuentes. Is he in that same range, Scott, as the previous names we just spoke about? The Mick Abels, the Mike Burrows, the Braxton Ashcrafts, or is he behind that tier for now? Just because he's not starting,
Yeah, he's behind it for now.
Okay.
Because I think you can get away with him drafting him later. I don't know. The way I just salivated over him, maybe that's going to boost his stock. But yeah, he's not. I don't know that he's going to be usable right out of the gate in the same way those will be. But the upside is certainly up there with any of them, maybe even surpassing them.
All right, let's move on here. Parker Messick has made the Guardians opening day rotation over Logan Allen, which is pretty much what we were expecting. But the Guardians rotation is set with Tanner Bibee, Gavin Williams, Slade Ciccone, Joey Cantillo, and Parker Messick. Messick's ADP this weekend was 307. He was behind Roki Sasaki, Clay Holmes, Cade Cavalli, Matthew Liberatore, Tyler Mahle. I think I would take Messick over all of those. Messick versus Liberatore is pretty close. I'm kind of interested in Liberatore, but yeah.
I'd take Messick over all of them. So I guess if Messick happens to be available in your league, he's a great waiver wire pickup too. He just happened not to be available in mine.
Especially, man, if you play in 10 or 12 team leagues, I have to imagine the waiver wire with all these interesting starting pitchers going late in drafts, like you've got tough decisions on your head because there are a lot of interesting ones that are, that post 250 ADP or might have just went undrafted if it's a shallower league, all these names that we're talking about, Burrows and Ashcraft and Abel and Messick and Didier Fuentes. A lot of exciting pitchers here heading into the start of the season. Let's get back over to the bad news, Scott. And this one surprised me. The Nationals sent Dylan Cruz to AAA. This happened on Friday. He had himself a terrible spring. He hit 103, 0 homers, a 32% strikeout rate. He is 63% rostered. Do you think Dylan Cruz is someone you have to hold on to if you drafted him, or if people are still drafting, does he need to be drafted?
I had no interest in drafting him in this 16-teamer we did tonight. It is only a 3 outfielder league. It probably would change if it's 5 outfielders, and I think there's a justification to continue to stash him there. But it's not like he's ever really looked good in the majors. There have been some injuries and whatnot, but let's see. How low did I actually put Dylan Cruz?
This is so funny, Scott. We moved Dylan Cruz to within 1 spot in our outfield rankings.
Yeah.
Again, we did not consult this. So I have him at 73. You have him at 74.
That for me is behind, right behind Evan Carter, who is another failure to launch kind of outfielder, where, big prospect, maybe promoted too soon and has just struggled to find his footing in the majors with injuries and whatever else. He didn't have such a great spring. He had a decent spring, I guess, just the batting average is low. But I don't have a ton of confidence in Evan Carter being an impactful fantasy player. So I think putting Cruz right behind him makes sense. Like, they still appreciate the upside. He's still young enough that he could come through. But it feels like a work in progress without much progress, if that makes sense.
So Dylan Cruz, I drafted him in a few 5 outfielder leagues. I'm going to try to hold on for now, but I mean, if I need that roster spot within the next couple of weeks, he's on the chopping block. So I don't think he's someone that has to be rostered. 5 outfielder leagues I would try to for now with Dylan Cruz. I still think there's upside here. Big prospect pedigree. Obviously, very high pick in the first round just a couple of years ago. And it's just weird the way his career has played out so far. He was called up as a 22-year-old. And then obviously last year had the nasty oblique injury that kind of wrecked his season. And then obviously a bad spring here. So I am not giving up on Cruz long-term, but obviously we have to see something from him in the minors. Roster Resource has James Wood, Dalen Lyle, Jacob Young in the Nationals outfield with Andres Chaparro as the DH. And very deep league name here, Scott. It's probably just like NL only, but Chaparro has flashed some power in the minors. Do you have any deep league interest in him?
Not outside of NL only, no. I mean, I probably have more interest in Jacob Young, frankly, as a speed specialist, but not a lot of interest there either.
All right, Sean Manaea will begin the season in the bullpen for the Mets. Apparently, he will be used in a piggyback role. Their rotation is Freddie Peralta, David Peterson, Nolan McLean, Clay Holmes, and Kodai Senga. Same question, Scott. Does Sean Manaea need to be drafted at all?
I think it's more common to go that deep into the pitcher pool than it is to go that deep into the outfield pool. So I think he's a little more draftable than Dylan Cruz, but I don't think anyone should be particularly eager to draft him. This does seem like a tacit admission from the Mets that they're worried about what's going on with his velocity too.
Yep.
He performed well this spring. He has such an unusual arm angle that he might do okay with a 90-ish mile per hour fastball, but it could certainly go the other way. And I think it's one where we just have to wait and see. So I'm not giving up on Sean Manaea being a useful or potentially even impactful pitcher this year, but obviously there is a lot of reason for doubt, and he's not going to be that usable to start out.
As Merrill Kelly indicated, I believe it was last week, he will start the season on the IL as he continues to ramp up after that back injury that set him back a little bit. The Diamondbacks opening day rotation will be Zach Gallen, Ryan Nelson, Eduardo Rodriguez, Michael Soroka, and Brandon Pfaadt. Scott, what do you think happens here in this rotation once Merrill Kelly is back? Do you think they go with a 6-man? I understand life can find a way, but let's assume that everyone stays healthy for the first couple of weeks. What do you think would happen in the D-backs rotation?
I think Soroka would shift to the bullpen. Presuming everybody's healthy and humming on all cylinders, that seems like the likeliest scenario to me.
All right, Gleyber Torres was scratched from the lineup on Saturday with lower back tightness, but it sounds like he is okay, and he will be good to go for exhibition games this week. So deep league, middle infielder type, Gleyber Torres, sounds like he's good. Kyle Harrison completed a bullpen session on Saturday and is expected to be on the Brewers opening day roster. He has been dealing with a blister on his left index finger. His first spring start, Scott, Kyle Harrison, was interesting. It was the 3 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts. But his next 2 starts after that, he was knocked around pretty hard. Do you have interest in Kyle Harrison? I feel like he's kind of moved behind all these other interesting sleeper candidates we've talked about.
Yeah, he had that one interesting 8 strikeouts in 3 innings or whatever it was the first time out. And it looked like his pitch selection had changed a little bit, but subsequent starts, he's a little closer to the Kyle Harrison we remember. So I have not maintained the same level of enthusiasm for him.
We also learned that Brandon Sproat will be on the opening day roster. I almost think I would rather just take a last round flyer on Sproat over Kyle Harrison. What do you think?
Yeah. I wonder if I ever actually moved Harrison into the draftable range of my rankings. I did not. So good for me. It was probably just negligence, but it's negligence that paid off.
Yeah, I don't think I moved Harrison up either. I did move Brandon Sproat up quite a bit. I got him up to SP 95. So that is an interesting range of the rankings. I have Liberator, Sproat, Rhett Lauder, Max Scherzer, Didier Fuentes, all 94 through 98. So it's kind of an interesting range there of the last round picks there in your drafts. The Orioles optioned Dean Kramer to the minors, and they opted to go with a 5-man rotation. Given that the way the early season schedule is set up here for the Orioles, they have Trevor Rogers, Kyle Bradish, Shane Baz, Chris Bassett, and Zach Eflin. Obviously, Kramer wasn't really somebody that we were interested in for fantasy, Scott, but just worth noting because we thought this would be a 6-man rotation, but they're going to start things out as a 5-man there with the Orioles. Walker.
Kramer has streamable moments, and he has had in the past few years, and I'm sure he'll be back at some point, but it was a surprising demotion.
We'll talk about Zach Eflin a little bit later on. He's quietly had himself a nice spring. Hasn't pitched too much, but had a nice start this weekend. Maybe he's just finally healthy. Again, that is Zach Eflin. Walker Buehler has made the Padres rotation, which includes Michael King, Nick Pivetta, Randy Vasquez, and Herman Marquez. So, Scott, I put this on the rundown before Walker Buehler start on Sunday. And I just looked it up. 3 1/3 innings, 11 hits, 7 earned runs, 4 homers allowed. So, previous start looked really good for Walker Buehler. It's like 5 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. Like, oh, well, I don't know. Maybe there's a chance Walker Buehler, he's back. I don't know. He was back to stinking on Sunday.
Everything was down more than 2 miles per hour, too, in this stinky start for Buehler. I have noticed that was true for a lot of pitchers this weekend. I don't know if it's just dead arm stuff at the end of spring or, last start. I'm pretty much stretched out already, so let's not do anything to get myself hurt kind of situation. I don't know what to make of it. It might not mean anything for any particular pitcher. Even what I brought up for Reynaldo Lopez, he was 3 miles per hour below, which is bad enough, and then 6 miles per hour in the last start. I mean, I don't know if it's just people easing up at the end of spring training, but it was something I was seeing with some consistency.
All right, Grayson Rodriguez will start the season on the IL as he's dealing with that dead arm as well. The Angels rotation will be Jose Soriano, Yusei Kikuchi, Reed Detmers, Jack Kohanowitz, and Ryan Johnson. Who is Ryan Johnson? He's 23 years old. He was the 74th overall pick back in 2024. He actually made the opening day roster last year as a reliever with no minor league experience. It was the most Angels thing of all time. It did not go well. He was sent down to the minors. He did perform well in the minors, Scott. So, look, this is a very deep league name, probably AL only or deeper points leagues because he is RP only. But any interest in Ryan Johnson with the Angels?
Is he? I think he's a pretty good ground ball pitcher. Yeah, 51% rate in the minors last year, even higher rate this spring. I don't think there's a ton of upside here, but I could see him being a solid floor guy. Hard to get interested in him relative to those other names, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, I think it's AL only, kind of deeper points leagues right now as a very deep spark there with Ryan Johnson. Let's take our final break.
Can we talk about one more rotation spot issue? Development.
Yeah, I have a few other on the rundown, but maybe
okay.
I might
not.
It's
Emmet Sheehan, Frank. I don't know if you saw this right before it came out, like 45 minutes before we started recording.
What do we have?
Hybrid role to begin the year. They're already playing games with Emmet. They want him to piggyback with Ohtani.
Wasn't there another report this weekend where he said he was in the rotation?
I don't remember seeing that, but I definitely saw this one. Piggyback with Ohtani. Now, it sounds like they're not going 6-man right away, and that's part of it. So once they have to go 6-man to space out Ohtani starts enough, then presumably Sheehan's in. But I just don't like that they're already playing these games with him again.
No, you're right. I mean, that is a disaster. I mean, it's
that was a little strong. I mean,
you could use him in category leagues, right? Where if he's pitching 4 innings of relief, like, yeah, he could give you good ratios and strikeouts and things like that. But in terms of, getting quality starts or length from Emmet Sheehan, that's probably going to be pretty hard to get.
He did have some relief appearances last year where he went more like a starter's length. Let me confirm that. There were more actual start. There was one weird game on September 15th where he threw 7 innings, but technically came in relief. So I guess that's what I was thinking of. But
is this actually locked in, Scott? Because I'm seeing a lot of Dave Roberts hasn't made a decision yet between Emmet Sheehan and Justin Robleski for the last rotation spot.
So the report I saw, this is from Katie Wu of The Athletics, could operate in a hybrid role. Either him or Robleski will follow Shohei Ohtani in his starts. So, yeah, it's not locked in.
But the fact that they're even talking about it is so annoying.
Yep. Yep.
I think I only wound up with him on one team. I did like him. I wrote him up in Breakouts 2.0. I think we all like the stuff and the skills that he showed last year, but kudos to you guys. You were all over kind of like, being more cautious with that with Emmet Sheehan. So
yeah, and I don't want this to put a big radioactive sticker on him or anything. But I lowered him in my rankings a whole tier. So now he's behind like Michael King. He's more in the Cade Horton range of my rankings, when before he was more in the Tyler Glasnow range. Cade Horton's still a desirable young arm himself. So it's like Sheehan remains desirable, but it's just you're not as bankable as he seemed.
It's really tough in a head-to-head points league, though, with Sheehan too. Like you're never going to get quality starts. How much volume are you going to get?
It might be a short-term thing, Frank.
Right, I know.
Don't overreact.
I'm overreacting. You got me. This happens at times. I need Scott to kind of keep me in check and everything, but
you're just upset because you have a lot of Sheehan, right?
No. I only have one share, but I liked him. He was someone that I was talking
about it in the past tense.
Yep. All right. Well, let's take our final break. When we return, I got a couple other items here, some performances from the weekend. We'll do that right after this.
You need a hug?
You need a fist?
Crutch.
Crutch,
you need anything?
I do have one question.
We didn't mean right now.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Again, still going through some rotation news. Things are being set here ahead of opening day. The Pirates rotation was announced, and it includes Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, Braxton Ashcraft, Bubba Chandler, and Carmen Mlodzinski, who last year had a 3.55 ERA, a 1.30 WHIP, 8.1 K per 9, did a good job getting ground balls. Also was much better as a reliever than as a starter. Scott, do you have any deep league interest in Carmen Mlodzinski of the Pirates?
I was not planning to talk about him. So no, I would say less than even Ryan Johnson.
Mm-hmm. He, I believe, is a Sparp, though. So we should probably know that with Carmen Mlodzinski. Just want to confirm that. And yes, he is a Sparp. So if you play in points leagues, another name that could potentially be on your radar there is Carmen Mlodzinski. And it's spelled Mlodzinski for those looking for the...
Did you do that off memory?
No. I have it right here on the rundown. There's no way I was going to remember that one. Jansen Junk has made the Marlins as their SP5. Braxton Garrett was sent down to the minors. Honestly, neither has had a good spring. This makes me a little bit more optimistic about Robbie Snelling, Scott, just because I don't think Jansen Junk is very good. I don't think Chris Paddock is very good. So if we get a month of those guys not performing well, I think we could see Robbie Snelling pretty early on this season.
He's got to look better than he did this spring.
He was, it was pretty bad this spring.
And maybe he will, but the spring took a lot of my enthusiasm away there, perhaps unfairly because it is only spring, but obviously we'll have a chance to react to Snelling later if he does prove to be deserving of a pickup.
We have a bunch of Rocky stuff to talk about. TJ Rumfield, Edouard Julien, Kyle Karros, and Ryan Ritter all made the team. So no Troy Johnston or Blaine Krim. Looks like TJ Rumfield at first base, Edouard Julien at second base. Roster Resource has Kyle Karros and Ryan Ritter on the bench as short side platoons. Scott, any deep league interest in specifically Rumfield or Edouard Julien here making the team?
Yeah, and those 15 teamers and deeper, I would say Rumfield was the second most interesting player to Didier Fuentes, who was actually available, at least in my leagues. Not saying he needs to be picked up everywhere. I'm talking about the deeper roto leagues because I think he'll play a lot, and I think it's an interesting skill set. Good plate discipline. Will the power, obviously he hit 4 home runs this spring, and that was in Cactus League play where home runs are pretty easy to come by. So will the power translate to major league ballparks in a full-time or better half of a platoon role against major league pitchers? I think that's a real question because the exit velocity readings on their own aren't that impressive for Rumfield, but he might be able to launch angle his way to a pretty good home run total. Obviously has the benefit of playing half his games at Coors Field. I'm interested enough in deeper leagues to throw a couple bucks at TJ Rumfield.
All right, the Rockies rotation is set to start the year. Kyle Freeland, Michael Lorenzen, Jose Quintana, Tomoyuki Sugano, and Ryan Feltner. So Chase Dollander, he made the team, but apparently will pitch out of the bullpen here. Dollander got off to a nice start this spring, but then his last 2 starts were pretty rough. I don't think that we had much standard mixed league interest in Chase Dollander, Scott, but he is a high-end prospect. He has the pedigree. So in deeper leagues, I was following this just to see what he could do, but I was pretty surprised he didn't actually make the rotation. That's Chase Dollander with the Rockies.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in him, even if he did. He does have that prospect pedigree, but the book on him coming up through the minors was the fastball shape is so good that it might work on its own. He may not have to deal with breaking balls so much at Coors Field, which is often the downfall of pitchers at Coors Field. They just don't break enough there. But the fastball shape hasn't looked that impressive to me. And when I've looked at the data there for Dollander.
Yep. Rhys Hoskins will be on the Guardians opening day roster this spring. He's gone 8 for 36, 222 batting average with 3 home runs. Scott, who do you like more just as a speculative deep league corner infielder, Rhys Hoskins or TJ Rumfield?
I would have to say Hoskins because he's been there before. Many times he's been there before. And I would say, I don't know that either has tremendous job security, but if Charlie Condon, who also had a great spring, is crushing it at AAA, I don't think TJ Rumfield gets a long leash for the Rockies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would prefer Hoskins of the two.
Alex Freeland made the Dodgers opening day roster over Hesung Kim. Kim will start in the minors. Roster Resource currently has Miguel Rojas starting at second base, while Tommy Edman is on the IL with Freeland, Santiago Espinal, Alex Call, and Dalton Rushing there on the Dodgers bench. Scott, any deep league interest in whoever fills in at second base, whether it's Freeland or Miguel Rojas or Espinal?
I can't say going into the season that I have much interest in them. No, as Alex Freeland showed enough in the minors that I could see him turning into something. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But didn't show much of anything when he was up last year. And I think he actually needs to start performing for me to take an interest in him.
All right. I did get, we got some news on some young hitters that, things that we pretty much expected. Justin Crawford will be on the Phillies opening day roster. Marcelo Meyer will be the Red Sox starting second baseman. Jason Dominguez was sent to AAA. Christian Campbell also sent down there with the Red Sox.
And I think the Campbell being sent down, again, we pretty much expected it, but that pretty much assures us that Jarren Duran and Wilyer Abreu are both everyday players because they don't really have a right-handed hitting outfielder on their bench.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And one miscellaneous news item here. The Phillies signed Christopher Sanchez to a 6-year, $107 million extension that includes a club option for 2033. He is 30 years old. Look, I'm happy he's got his money. I totally get financial security, being a pitcher, all that. Feels like a kind of team-friendly extension here for Christopher Sanchez. So, look, you get your money, but I kind of feel like if he bet on himself, maybe he could have wound up making more than that. But I think his contract was kind of weird, too, where I think he had 2 or 3 more years after this one on his current deal. So maybe he just wanted to lock in some money before he's 33 years old, which I get, but
yeah, it's always, it's harder to gauge when somebody is making so little for the next few years. Obviously obviously the team doesn't want to lose that advantage, so it becomes okay. We'll pay you a little more for the upcoming years. If you take a little less for those future years, then you could get on the open market. I agree. I was surprised how low the figure was for Sanchez, but it's not apples to apples comparing it to like if he was on the free agent market.
All right, let's wrap up here, Scott. Some performances from the weekend. First up, the good Shane O'Mac. I don't have it loaded up, but I'll pull it up while we're talking about him. He faced the Red Sox. He threw 5 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. He had 8 whiffs on 73 pitches. His velocity remains down. He averages 94.3 on his fastball, which is 2.5 miles per hour down from the last time we saw him. But 3 of his 4 starts this spring have been scoreless, Scott. So I still have struggled to figure out my opinion of Shane McClanahan this year. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe he can kind of do what Brandon Woodruff did last year, and he could still have success being down 2 to 3 miles per hour from the past. Where are you at on Shane O'Mac?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. The starts have been effective. He's gotten whiffs at a nice rate. He's going a lot later than Spencer Strider, who, of course, we're worried about the fastball velocity. For him, too, former fantasy ace whose velocity doesn't seem to be where we're used to seeing it. So McClanahan's going a lot later than him, and I think he probably has a better secondary arsenal to make up for the lack of fastball velocity there relative to Strider. So my alarm just isn't raised as much, and the discount is such that if it doesn't work out, you don't lose that much. So I feel pretty good. I actually drafted him for the first time in a league that counts in the 16-team for the People League. And I'm hoping for the best. There is also a possibility, I mean, that's what they've been saying, that he isn't going max effort right now. And so if we do see his velocity jump at the start of the season, wow, that'll feel really good for those who invested in him. I think he's a fine pick where he's going, which is about 180 overall over the last week, I believe. Let me double check that. Yes, 181.
Okay. Again, that was Shane O'Mac.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
The money. It might be coming here with Shane McClanahan. Scott, 2 pitchers with different pitches that I just wanted to bring up and find out if you think it matters at all. But Dylan Cease, 5 shutout innings this weekend with 6 strikeouts. He had 15 whiffs on 83 pitches. 4 came on this changeup that he threw 11 times, and it was different. The velocity was up almost 10 miles per hour, so it was like 87 miles per hour on that changeup, and it had 9 less inches of drop from last year, and it was really good. So I just kind of caught me off guard because normally Dylan Cease doesn't really throw a changeup. And then Ryan Nelson threw his slider more, and that was different as well. The velo was down 1.5 miles per hour. It had 5 more inches of drop and had 7 whiffs. Ryan Nelson is usually just a fastball guy. We usually don't get much from his secondary pitches at all. He was going up against a really bad Rangers lineup, so I just wanted to mention that. But Scott, do either of these things matter? Dylan Cease with a changeup and Ryan Nelson with a slider.
I wonder if that was more of a cutter for Cease. I don't know. This is the first I've heard of it. But I do think the Blue Jays are going to be a good organization for him. And this may be the first indication of them. I mean, obviously they signed him to a big deal. They were excited about him. And yeah, I'd be interested in hearing more about this, but it's something that could help take Cease to another level potentially.
Okay,
And,
Scott,
and I like Nelson as a whip specialist. So if he gets a decent secondary offering, he does well. He seems to do well the more he throws his fastballs. So I'd rather not see him get away from that. But a good secondary option would help.
so we actually just got an update, Scott, per Katie Wu, who covers the Dodgers. Emmet Sheehan will begin in the rotation. Justin Robleski will be the piggyback reliever with Shohei Ohtani.
Okay.
Crisis averted. We're so back, baby.
Crisis averted.
Just gonna go back and erase me crying for like 2 minutes. I did want to talk quickly about Cole Young, someone we've mentioned a few times, Scott, as a very deep sleeper. He hit 2 home runs on Friday. One was a reported 478 feet. Now, that is not showing up in StatCast anymore, but it was at the time. I saw it, and I saw a few people talking about it on Twitter. It was the longest home run hit in all of spring training, if that number is true. But this is a few times now where we've seen some really hard and really far home runs from Cole Young, just kind of strengthening his case as a deep league middle infield sleeper.
Honestly, I don't even know that it's deep leagues anymore. I'm pretty excited about Cole Young.
He was picked up in our Beat FBT NFBC league. That is a 12-team roto league. So not that deep. 12-team roto with a middle infielder spot. He was picked up in that league. So
yeah, I wish I had a single share of Cole Young because I think he is looking like a breakout from the spring. They seem really excited about him in Mariners camp, but I mean, the home runs, they're not Cactus League cheapies. And he always was regarded as a high-end prospect. Obviously didn't have a strong showing as a rookie last year, but he seemed to learn from the experience, and I know he was dedicated to improving this offseason, which I guess is vague, but I've read about it. I remember there were some specifics that got me excited. I'm not recalling them right now, but Cole Young, I think could potentially be a big breakout this year.
I had 5 pitchers, Scott. I just wanted to quickly ask you about it. They're all late round names. We've mentioned a few of their names already, but they all wrapped up good springs this weekend. Matthew Liberatore, Will Warren, Zach Eflin, Max Scherzer, Luis Severino. How would you rank those 5 heading into the season? Again, it's Liberatore, Will Warren, Eflin, Scherzer, Severino.
I would rank them this way. And maybe I need to look, I'm going to put Eflin at the end, but maybe I need to look a little closer at him. He hadn't really caught my attention until this latest start. I'm going to go, I believe I have Will Warren the highest. Yes, I do. Will Warren, Matthew Liberatore. I kind of like Liberatore more than Warren. Let's say Liberatore, then Warren, then Scherzer, then Eflin. But again, I want to take a closer look at Eflin. I don't know. Do you have a case for Eflin? I left out Severino there. Severino ahead of Scherzer and Eflin.
Yeah.
That was hard to follow. I'm sorry. Honestly, in most leagues, Liberatore and Warren are the only ones I'm looking at right now.
Eflin hasn't really pitched much this spring. He only made 2 starts. It was 7 1/3, I believe, shutout innings with 10 strikeouts to 1 walk. What I noticed here in this start is that he used his cutter a lot more. Both that pitch and his curveball looked really good. I didn't see the lineup that he was going up against. It could have been like a B or a C lineup, but he had the surgery this offseason, and maybe he's just finally healthy again. So as someone going as late as he is, he could be a whip help, maybe somewhere in that like 115-ish range. I think he's a name that just needs to be on our radar and maybe starts as a streamer and could develop more into that, more from that this season with Zach Eflin. 2 bad starts from this weekend. And I don't think either really matters too much, but just wanted to give you the opportunity, Scott. Garrett Crochet got crushed by the Braves. Velocity has been down a little bit this spring. He has given up 12 earned runs over 14 and 2/3. Again, I don't really think it's a big deal. And then Tanner Bibee, 8 earned runs over 4 and 2/3. His last 2 starts, it's 23 hits allowed, 14 earned runs, 5 homers. Have you noticed anything that scares you at all with Crochet or Tanner Bibee?
No. The velo was down a little for Crochet in Saturday's start. Like I said, it was down for a lot of pitchers in this latest turn, and it was only like 1 mile per hour. He said his pitch selection would be different during the regular season, and that's probably true. I mean, he's obviously an established starter at this point. Spring's more about working on stuff and building up than it is competing for anything. And I haven't seen him slip in drafts at all. So I don't think there's anything to worry about here with Crochet. I have backed away from Bibee a little bit because his spring has been so bad. But he's saying his delivery feels the best it has heading into a season in a long time. And he feels like he learned a lot from those 3 great starts at the end of last season. Obviously it was a difficult year, but ended it with 3 really good starts in a row. He sounds pretty positive about the whole thing. Obviously his rotation spot wasn't in jeopardy either. So I don't want to overreact to that, but I went from being enthusiastic about drafting Bibee to it's just like, well, if he happens to be there at the right time to take him, I guess I'll take him, but I can't say I have a ton of confidence in him.
Mm-hmm. 2 final names here on the list, somewhere in between good and bad. Joe Ryan, the results were fine. 5 innings, 1 run, 2 strikeouts here against the Tampa Bay Rays. His velocity has been down consistently. I know he was dealing with the back injury, but he averaged right around 92 miles per hour on his fastball here. Last year, he was closer to 94 in the regular season. I did see he was asked about it after the start, and he responded by saying his fastball velocity was around 92 last spring as well. I didn't look into that, but that's what Joe Ryan said. And then Nick Pivetta, bad results on Friday, but I thought it was encouraging that his velocity was up, even though he's been dealing with this kind of dead arm thing that he's going through as well. So any thoughts on Joe Ryan or Nick Pivetta?
No, I mean, I haven't really moved either in my rankings. I just talked about where I have Pivetta. He's in that tier of starting pitchers where there are a lot of question marks, and I don't think his are the biggest. So I would be fine taking him there. And Joe Ryan, if he comes at any sort of discount, I'd be thrilled to take advantage of that. It's funny. Coming into like some of the earliest drafts back in the fall and winter, it's like, yeah, Joe Ryan's going too early. And now I think maybe he's sliding too much in some cases.
Yep. Let's wrap up here, Scott, and a quick talk about our For the People Listener League draft. Again, this is kind of the Heath Cummings Memorial, what he's left behind here to fantasy baseball today. It is a 16-team weekly head-to-head categories league where the categories are, it's a 5x5. It's OBP instead of batting average, net stolen bases, so steals minus caught stealing, and instead of steals. And then on the pitching side, it's quality starts instead of wins, saves plus holds instead of saves. So it's a pretty wonky one, Scott.
It's wonky. I feel like Keith set it up just to troll me. And for a while, for the first few years, I really struggled at it. I kind of just approached it like a roto league and hoped for the best since it's head-to-head categories. But I've won 2 of the last 3 years, so I think I have a better grasp on how to handle this league now. My draft was a little odd. My team looks a little odd. But it kind of always does, at least in the years where I've had success with it. So I'm trying not to get stuck on that because I know I know that only certain players are really of interest to me in this format. even if I have to reach for them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we were drafting back to back. I had the second pick. I was sharing this team with Chris, and we took Ohtani second. You took Juan Soto third in OBP. Again, that makes sense to do that. Looking at your team now, yeah, it is a pretty wonky one. You got Chandler Simpson in your outfield, Scott, and Ben Rice at first base.
Yes, I've drafted Ben Rice twice, and both times as a first baseman, which I know is like heresy. Look, I've been doing this for a long time. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've told people to never start a catcher eligible player anywhere but catcher. But there's never been a year like this at catcher. And so you get to a point, what happened in this draft is, okay, I have Ben Rice slotted in my catcher spot. I still haven't filled first base yet. The best one on the board is Spencer Torkelson. Who do I like more, Spencer Torkelson or Samuel Basallo, who's been a monster this spring and, of course, has huge upside? And theoretically, both Basallo and Rice are going to be true everyday players, not just pure catchers. So I decided, well, I like Basallo better than Torkelson. So I guess Ben Rice is my first baseman. And I kind of knew that it was good, that it could play out that way when I took Ben Rice. I took him toward the end of round 5, I guess it was, a little after pick 60. Is that right? Was that round 5? Or was that round?
I think you took him at the end of round 4, Ben.
At the end of round 4. It was a little after 60. It was pretty much right.
It was like
at
60,
or a little below
61,
ADP.
61.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
It was between him and George Springer, who you guys ended up taking. I wanted to get them both. Maybe I made the wrong choice. But anyway, I took Rice, and I was kind of thinking, if things don't work out at first base, obviously that tier I like at first base, the Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson tier, Josh Naylor, they're all gone at that point. If things work out so that I don't get like Sal Stewart or Jonathan Aranda here, some of the sleepers I like, then I may have to move Rice to first base. So I'm going to go ahead and take him. I think he's a good value where I'm getting him. I think he's going to be good for this format. There's a chance I may have to move to first base, and that ended up being what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it's in a format like this, 16-team head-to-head categories, OBP, kind of wonky categories. Like, things are just it just changes. You don't really know what to expect within the draft, and we wound up with a team that doesn't really look like anything either of us draft much either. We started with Ohtani, Bryce Harper, and Manny Machado. But then we were kind of chasing pitching for a lot of the draft after that. And, we took some kind of boring guys that we expect to get a lot of quality starts. Framber Valdez, Sandy Alcantara should get a lot of quality starts. We got Ryan Pepio, so Pep Boys on the same team. Happy about that. And then Tatsuya Imai. So those are our top 4. It's like in a 16-teamer, I guess it could work out. But, yeah, it's like you start 3 hitters in a league this deep, 16 teams. It's like you're pretty much chasing pitching from there on out. So,
yeah, one thing I did is I took Eugenio Suarez about 20 spots early. And that, I think, was that right after you took Springer? So because I was denied Springer after the Rice pick, I didn't love any of my choices, but I knew Suarez, it was too early, but in a 16-team league, me picking toward an end, good chance he wasn't going to make it back to me. And I just wanted category dominators. That has been the biggest key to me finding success in this league, is just targeting guys that I know are going to give me a ton of something, rather than those jack of all trades types. Hope they add up to enough each week that you win the category. So Suarez, obviously 49 home runs, about 120 RBI last year. Hopefully it stays the same with Cincinnati, fills a weak position. I also took Bryce Terang late in round 2. It was like the 30th overall pick because 16 teams, but it was like,
this
nervous. Does not feel good.
I was so nervous that you were going to take Bryce Harper because
I
Bryce
almost did.
Gets a little bit of a boost in OBP, and he was the last first baseman in that tier. I was so scared you were going to take.
I didn't have him as the last first baseman in the tier because I have Freddie Freeman and Josh Naylor also in that tier. I thought about it. I know since it's only 9 hitter spots and it's a 16-team league, and I don't want to be weak anywhere, any of the 9-hitter spots, since there's so few of them, obviously. I really emphasized position scarcity in this one, and I hoped Terang could be a category dominator in stolen bases, though he actually got caught stealing a lot last year, which I saw after I drafted him. It's not something I think about very often, but hopefully he's just going to run a lot more in general, more like he did 2 years ago. And that'll help to wash that out. The Simpson pick is interesting because he's a category dominator, yes, but he works against some of those other category dominators that I drafted earlier. Outfield was depleting. I got him pretty late.
Yeah.
I felt like stolen base relative to home runs, stolen bases was something I was lagging in. I don't know that I'm going to end up starting him every week. I have Owen Casey and Jordan Lawler, who's going to pick up outfield eligibility on my bench. They may end up being my third outfielder more often if they perform well. But that's kind of how my lineup came together there. And yeah, the pitching end, I went pretty weak. I took Chris Sale in round 3, in part because I took him over like a Freddie Freeman, for instance, because I had a feeling in a 16-teamer, me waiting so long between picks at the 3rd overall, I was just going to miss out on so many ranges of starting pitchers. I wanted to be a little more solid there. Hopefully Sale stays healthy. And yes, that's exactly what happened. It was one of those drafts, like it was uncomfortable, and I didn't like how I felt like every pick was not like, oh, this guy fell in my lap. It was more like I got to choose between these 4 options, none of whom feel like they're priced exactly right. And that's always the worst feeling for drafts. But the decisions I made kept being validated over and over again. Like I took somebody because I feared this was going to happen, and that's exactly what happened. And that did happen over and over again. I don't know if I'm going to get a good team out of it, but I think I was gratified that when I had to make the best of when I had to make the best of several bad options presented to me, I feel like the draft played out in a way that suggests I made the right one.
All right. Well, we are going to end today's show with a song that was made from one of the listeners who is in the For the People League. His name is Jonathan Greenstein. And let us know what you think in the comments. It was an intro to FBT, kind of a different rendition, a different take on it, kind of pop punk version. I really like it, and obviously that's why Jonathan is in the league. So thank you to him. We'll wrap up with that. And again, let us know what you think of it. Hit me up on Twitter, email, drop it in the comments, and let us know. I also just want to give you a couple heads up for tomorrow. Later today on Monday when you're listening to this, Chris will be back tomorrow, and we're doing our last live draft here on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern time. That is our head-to-head points listener league. So just a heads up that we're going to go live a little bit earlier than usual. And it will be a live draft, our last live draft here of the off season. So we are going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball Today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
It's fantasy baseball today on CBS Sports Network. With Scott White checking play traits, Frank Stampfl tracking all the box scores, Chris Stowers dropping takes like foul balls. We're laughing about your team, but we love you. Fantasy baseball today on CBS.